we get down to some more business, I want to talk to and acknowledge Willie Adams. Willie Adams has been around a long, long time and a great, great friend and colleague of our union and myself. And also acknowledge Bobby O. He's now taken over the role. And I've watched him come through. And his leadership and the education he's had with Big Bob and Willie and Spinoza before them has put this union on the right course, and it was the right choice. A choice made by the rank and file, and that is the only way to travel. Well done, Bob. And also Ed and Cam are there alongside in the international, and I've met them on many, many conferences and disputes, and we may just go through some. But before I do, I was thinking about what I would talk to you today about. And it's not going to be a normal speech as what I would normally get involved in. It is sad news on what is happening in Australia. But before I do that, I'm just looking around the room. I think it's appropriate we wake everyone up. Everyone, if they could possibly get on their feet. And this is just a quick one. This is just a quick one. I'll say union, you say power. Union! Power! Bit louder, guys. I say union, you say. Power! Union! Power! Union! Power! Union! Power! Put your two hands in the air. Let's have this on video. I say union, you say. Power! Union! Power! Union! Power! Union! Power! Thanks, brothers and sisters. So we're getting into the theme a little bit. I want to acknowledge our Sydney branch, our delegation that came over from Australia. And if they could stand up, and let's give them a round of applause. But before you do, I want to also and before you sit down, I want to also acknowledge one of the great union leaders out of Australia that's come over, a retired member. He's 83 years old. He's retired from the workforce, but not the struggle. Glenn Woods, he's over here at this conference here today. Good on you, Glenn. And also, it goes without saying, while I'm here, I want to acknowledge my wife that's been on this 50-year journey with me, Anna Carroll. She's here today. Thanks very much, Anna. Thanks, guys. The news I have here for today is absolutely disgusting, frightening. I have never seen anything like it in the 160 years of history and struggle in Australia. The CFMEU is the most powerful union in the country, by far. It picks unions up. Everyone wants to join the union, and in the last 3 years as National Secretary, when unions were going this way, the CFMEU was going that way, and in Melbourne alone, we signed up 7,000 members, new members, into the union. 7,000. Why is that? Because we are also a grass-based union. We are a union driven, as Chris says, from the ground up. And it was very humbling to see the men and the women, the hotel caterers who went there and rallied and protested against a global giant. And while I'm on that subject, we give you this commitment. If it's Hilton that you're going after and they're not paying the rates, if it's the Hyatt or if it's anywhere else in the world, the CFMEU will get on the street and support you in your struggle. We fought to get an Australian Labor government in. We not only fought, but we give our members money, and I'll be quite honest, $4 million for their campaign, and we went back 3 days later before the election and gave them another $1 million. On the proviso that we would put in a government for working men and women to have decent wages, decent conditions, a little bit of superannuation for when you retire, and a world that lives in peace. That's what we achieve to be. A world that lives in peace. And that is union business. It's your business. Because the only race in the world is the human race. Is the human race. This government that got in on the backs of workers has walked away, joined forces with the Conservative governments, and I've been in many, many disputes. Patrick's dispute, Auckland dispute, ILWU, ITSI disputes, the Canadian disputes, Dockers disputes, offshore disputes, locked up and jailed for what we believe in. And this government, after giving them the money, after getting commitments out of them to say they would work with the union movement, has turned their backs on not only us, but the whole of the trade union movement in Australia. And they decided overnight to put my union, the CFMEU, into administration. What does that mean? Well, I'm just going to tell you what it means. And it's very difficult to analyse legislation that was passed in 2 days without any discussion with the union, with the Liberals and Conservative multinationals. 2 days. They came into our union rooms all around the country. They seized control. They sacked 272 officials and staff. 272. With no reason, but said they could do it. The control of the union is for a minimum of 3 to 5 years and longer. They brought administrators in. They seized our assets. And when I say assets, we are not talking about a couple of $1 million. They seized our super fund, which alone is worth $93 billion of construction workers. When they sacked these workers, and I'll give an example, Rita Marlia, who was prior the president of the ALP, the Labour Party, until we had a disagreement with them over workers. They sacked that lady after 34 years. She's a lawyer. She's the president of the union in Sydney. 34 years, never had a conviction, never done anything wrong, only supporting workers, sacked overnight with the stroke of a pen. Can you imagine? And I'm not talking about an individual struggle. Can you imagine your union, the great ILWU, your branch, all the branches around America taking over, sacking your elected leadership, sacking your elected officials? And what is the reason for it? Allegations there's corruption, allegations there's bikies. My God, there's bikies in the Girl Guides. There's bikies in the Salvation Army. And that if there is any type of corruption in our union, then deal with it. You don't disband a union that's been there in struggle for working class Australians for 160 years. 160 years. When they take control of your assets, they said, bring your cars in, bring your laptops in, give us your phones back. 272 families. Well, how about their mental health now? And they, under the legislation, can never, ever work again in the country. And they've done nothing wrong. Nothing. Nothing wrong. And the sad thing about all this is that many right-wing unions involved in this. The leadership of the ACTU, a lady called Sally McManus, you can Google her, you can have a look. She's jumped in bed to put our union, who, into administration, but Sally, we pay her per year, our union alone, $700,000 to be a member of the ACTU, the equivalent to your AC, what is it, AC? AFL-ICIO, is it? Yeah. We pay them. This has been a planned, orchestrated decision made by a so-called Labour government, by a so-called head of the union movement in Australia. Heads. Well, I've got to tell you, one thing they haven't got that we have got. When that came out, 2 days later, we mobilised our membership. And in Melbourne alone, we had 70,000 workers on the street. 70,000 fighting, struggling to win back our union. It is yours, it's ours. And we're not letting it go. We're not letting it go. And late as last night, I was on a Zoom call, and we've brought 1,000 delegates together. The electrical trade union, the plumbers trade union, the maritime union, the construction union, the amalgamated metalworkers union, the firefighters union. They are all disgusted of what is going on. And they're standing with us. There is 10 to 12 unions that's now disaffiliating from the ACTU and are calling for their resignations, calling to bring down a rotten, stinking government that could do this to a working class union, a union that is built by the members, for the members, for the members. And we're not going to sit idly by and watch that. We're not going to sit by and watch it. Sycophants, that's what I call them, sick. You don't work all your life to be shown the door and thrown out of your own buildings with no recourse. And if you do challenge them in the courts, in the boss's courts, and we take the government there, the legislation that they've moved against the union is simply this: the King's Council that we have to fight the government. We pay for ours, but we also pay for theirs. So no matter what we do, the millions and billions of dollars, they're using our own money in the courts to disband our union. Not good news. Not good news. I looked at the campaign we're now running. It is going to need working men and women around the globe. It is going to need the ILWU, Local 142, the ILWU International, the ILA, all the unions from the ITF, the 602 unions. It is going to need a campaign that isn't going to be finished in one day. We are going to change the course of this government in Australia. Because if we let it go, how long do you think it's going to be before it comes to America? And in some cases, the RICO Act, and I've heard others talk about that in the east coast of America, where they come in and they strip your assets there too. The employers are sitting there right now, after agreements have been lodged, after agreements have been fought, after agreements have been won, and now saying they're not going to honour them. Our union, the CFMEU, got 25% wage increases across the building industry, across the docks, across the offshore oil and gas. We went out and we fought and we won. And we won. And so we campaign, we rally, we march, we strike, we occupy. And it is never going to stop. This struggle will never stop. And we need your help. We ask you for your help. When the strikes are on with ITCSI, let me tell you, they came to Victoria in Melbourne, and it was our construction and maritime union that went down the docks and picketed VICT. We put community pickets on. They didn't last long because we learned what they were doing in the courts over here. And they set up a non-union waterfront. They set it up with an ex-official, Mike O'Leary, who was the National Assistant Secretary of the MUA. And he brought in 200 to 300 workers who he forcibly stood over to say, don't join a union. Well, the problem they had, and it was in our favour, they needed to expand them docks where they were allowed to work. They needed construction workers. They needed dredging. And it was our turn to organise workers. And we met them in the pub. We met them in the shopping centres. We seen the wages and conditions they were on. And we showed them the wage and conditions that we get all around Australia with other stevedore companies. And slowly but surely, we got the blokes. We got the men and women. And we took them to a ballot. And we won that ballot after being told by O'Leary, the scab, that we would never win it. We supported the ILWU, and myself and Will Tracy were up for contempt charges on a picket line. And our crime was to saying that we wanted Australians on the job on decent wages, decent conditions of employment. Contempt charges is 5 years jail. 5 years. That's the commitment we give to our union. 5 years in jail. We ended up, after negotiations had finished, after protected strike action was finished, we ended up with a contract, the same contracts as what we have all around Australia, and 300 workers joined the union, and Mick O'Leary got the sack, got fired, and we moved forward. That is trade unionism. That is rank and file driven. And that's what I was educated for the last 50 years by great comrades in this room here today. Great people. I'm not sure how long I've got, brother, but I'm losing my voice. Get excited now and again. But let me tell you this, it is an absolute honour. I've got with me Nathan. Nathan's here, and he can speak in respect to what he's doing with Local 142. It is an absolutely brilliant occasion for this branch. And on behalf of Paddy Crumlin, on behalf of, again, our entire membership, the 127,000 financial members who are only a call away from you hotel people, only a call away from our longshoremen over here, only a call away from any type of struggle. We'll stand with you, we'll fight with you, and we will congratulate and win with you. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters.